The 2025 Formula One season kicks off this weekend, and that means it's predictions time, baby. That's right, it's time for our first Grand Prix predictions of 2025. We're going to Melbourne, the season opener, and I cannot wait. Honestly, I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited for race weekends to be back, for Formula One to be back. I've got no words. That's how excited I am. I'm also very excited for it to be a season opener again in Australia. I don't know what it is about Australia being the season opener, but it just hits different, and I've really missed it. So very excited, but we're going to kick things off. We're going to kick our predictions off with pole position. I'm going Lando Norris. Now, during pre-season testing, I think it's safe to say that McLaren was the most well-rounded team. They were confident, their car looked quick, the drivers looked confident in it, they didn't have as many issues. The back of the car kind of slipped out a few times, but Lando and Oscar both said that it was manageable and that they didn't feel it was any detriment to the car. And if they're anything like what they were towards the end of last year, in fact, actually all through last year, because for 90% of last year, they were probably the fastest car. If they hit the ground running, how they ended last year, I don't see there being any issues really for McLaren. Lando's incredibly good in qualifying. He had some great quali performances last year. I think it is a safe bet to say that Lando Norris will be on pole position. Now moving on to the Grand Prix, to the podium, and in P3, I'm going Lewis Hamilton. I think Lewis is really just going to hit the ground running, to be honest with you. I think he feels confident in that Ferrari. He's got just a whole different vibe about him this year. I think it's just that new team, fresh mindset, everything like that. I think he's going to have a phenomenal weekend and is going to be on that third step of the podium for the Australian Grand Prix. The Ferrari seems decent. He has had a few slip-ups in testing, but testing, I'm not taking too much from it. I don't think we'll get any real gauge of how the cars are until qualifying, but I do think that Ferrari is going to be right behind the McLarens, and I'm putting Lewis Hamilton, P3, locking it in. P2 for the race, going Lando Norris. As I said, I think McLaren's got the most well-rounded car. I think Lando's going to have a great weekend, and it's going to be a cracking start to a drivers and constructors campaign for that team and that driver, but I just think he's going to miss out, just ever so slightly. I'm not going to say there's going to be a few issues for him, but I just think that there might be a few scrappy points, whether it's through strategy or something else, I don't know, but I don't think that we will see Lando Norris on the top step of that podium. Because in P1, I'm backing the homeboy, I'm backing Oscar Piastri for the first win of the season. I think Oscar is a phenomenal driver. He had some stellar performances last year. His race pace is good. He finds those issues. I said this all of last year. He finds those little issues. He figures out what is wrong with his driving, whether it be in the qualifying or whether it be in the race, and he irons them out. And he does have incredible potential. I do think this year we're going to see a much more rounded Oscar Piastri. It's his third year. I think he's got everything in him this year to go and win multiple races and really actually maybe launch a fight for a Drivers' Championship. Like, I see a world where Oscar is a multiple world champion. I genuinely think we're going to see that man win multiple world champions. And I do think that he is going to have a stellar start to the 2025 campaign. I think, as I said, I don't think he's going to get pole. I think that is Lando Norris's, because I think on that one lap pace, that quali lap pace, Lando will just beat him. But I do think when it comes to the race, Oscar will have the edge for Australia. So I'm putting it all out there. Oscar Piastri for the race win in Australia. Imagine the absolute scenes of Oscar Piastri winning the Australian Grand Prix. I actually think they would make it a national holiday. I don't know if you've seen everything in Melbourne at the moment, but he's on murals, he's on posters, flyers, he's doing some burger collaboration, so he's all over that. He's on trams, he's doing the announcement for the trams. His sister's on TikTok, and she put up a brilliant video where she's like, I literally cannot escape him, I'm just trying to get home from uni. And there's just Oscar everywhere. And then somebody actually commented on it and was like, oh, like I actually have to pass like a huge big poster of Lewis Hamilton like 2-3 times a week. And Oscar's sister replied and was like, I had to take a tram to uni this morning with my brother's face on it. They just love him. And to be fair, I love him too, and I'm backing him for the race win. So Lando Norris on pole, Lewis Hamilton P3, Lando Norris P2, and Oscar Piastri bringing it home for Australia. I would just love to see him win that race. I'd love to see him win it, and I think it would be incredibly special. All right, now moving on to just a few other predictions, and I think we will see both Williams drivers scoring points. I think they are going to have a much better start to 2025 than they did 2024. In testing, that car looked to be quite a leap forward from what it was last year. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think they're going to be way up high the points, but I do think some mid-back sort of points. I think the midfield fight is going to be a lot closer this year right off the bat between Alpine, Williams, Haas, maybe the V-Carb, but I wasn't that convinced by V-Carb during testing, but I definitely think these three teams are going to be in and around for that fight, and I do think Williams is going to have a pretty solid opening round the 2025 season. As similar to Lewis Hamilton, the vibe in that team seems to have shifted quite a bit since the end of last year. They had a really tough 2024, and I think with Carlos joining, with a pretty decent 3 days of testing, the morale has really been boosted in the team, and I do think that will affect everything from the mechanics to both drivers. I think Alex Albon's also going to have a pretty decent time out there this weekend. So I'm locking it in that both Williams drivers will score points. They might come 9th and 10th, but it still means my prediction came true. My next prediction lies with Red Bull, and I don't think that they are breaking into the top 5. That car seems to be a bit of a struggle. It didn't look as aggressive or menacing during testing this year as it did last year. I remember during testing and then at the season opener, we were all like, whoa, what have Red Bull done? Have they created a rocket ship? And they came flying straight out the gate. It doesn't seem to be that way this year. There seems to be something that the drivers are not happy with. The team doesn't seem happy with. They were constantly doing setup changes throughout the 3 days of testing. And even when all the final parts were on the car, they were still doing setup changes to it right up until the very last minute before Max Verstappen started to get race runs and everything in. And even at that point, he wasn't fully happy with it. He's also come out and said he doesn't believe that Red Bull is in for a chance of scoring huge points. I don't see them breaking into the top 5. I actually see a world where Red Bull are in the lower points and even maybe one of them outside the points. I think they've got a real struggle with that car. I think Max Verstappen will do Max Verstappen things. He is an incredibly talented driver, and you can give him quite tricky machinery and he can do amazing things with it. I think Liam Lawson is also a very talented driver. I just think there's something with this car that's not going to agree this weekend, and they will have issues and it will really pull them down the grid. And for my final prediction, Mercedes, Antonelli outscores Russell. I think Antonelli is going to have a superb little weekend, and I think he is going to absolutely wipe the floor with Russell. I say wipe the floor, but I don't think there'll be a huge gap between them. But I am going with Antonelli outscores Russell. Now, the pack will be pretty tight. I do think that Mercedes looked pretty decent over testing, but I think Antonelli will just have a much better time than George Russell, to be quite honest with you. These are just like off the cuff, going with vibes predictions. There is also a chance of rain. Like, we could have a weather affected opening race. I've seen lots of people saying that the weather forecast looks like it could be an Inters, and I would love nothing more than a little changeable conditions. We sort of pit stop for Inters, and then towards the end we pit stop for slicks. I love nothing more than that. It excites me. And do you know who's very good in wet conditions? Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen. Something to think about. I mean, it might not. It might just sort of threaten to rain, but we might get something. So that's very interesting. I'm happy with my decisions. I'm locking in my decisions, and I am going with both the Williams in the points, Antonelli outscoring Russell, and both those Red Bull cars being outside the top 5. I'm happy with that, Your Honour. I'm locking it in. I am excited though. And that is everything from us. We will be back after practice. We are back to our regular scheduled programming of our post-practice reviews, post-quali reviews, and race review after the Grand Prix. I also really love to watch Formula 2 and Formula 3. I just love to keep an eye on the younger talent that's coming through the ranks that potentially could be in Formula 1 this year. If you are watching Formula 2, one to keep an eye out, Arvid Lindblad. He's in the Red Bull Junior Driver Program. He won Formula 3. He's won Formula Regional Oceania. He is catching the attention of a lot of people. He is being talked up by Red Bull. So if you watch Formula 2 this year, and I recommend you do because it is chaos every single race, I would definitely be keeping an eye on it. Unfortunately, for this weekend, that does mean getting up at some pretty crazy times because they obviously do everything before the main event, Formula 1. So it kind of messes with the body clock a little bit if you just want to get up and watch Formula 1. But I would definitely recommend catching F2 if you can because there is some very interesting talent coming through those ranks. And I think it's going to be quite a spicy year for F2. That is everything from us. We will see you after practice on Friday. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments and make sure to follow us on Threads because that is where we do live coverage of the practice, quali and race sessions. And just follow us on social media in general at Parc Fermé Parlay. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you soon. I love you. Bye.